Okay, morning traders. Welcome to Trade Setup. We've got Morning Playbook this morning. So we're just taking a look at a few key markets we've got our eye on. Obviously, anyone that's been following for a while knows what we're looking at. It's more the correlated markets. I mean, with these, it's something we've got a major focus on because obviously believing that everything's extended and the way things are going at the moment, sentiment's starting to drift lower, um, we could see a bit of an unwind coming. So we just got our eyes on key markets, which would signal a bit of a heads up. Okay, morning Nathan. Yeah, signal heads up to coming price action and trading opportunities. So we saw the US dollar last night take a big bounce. So we'll take a look at that. But firstly, just before we get into it, we'll look at our indices that would be intraday trading. Okay, so we're starting to get out a few alerts on these. I'm just trying to work my little system out and how to do it. Excuse me. But that will be through the alert service we got going, posting a morning report of just, or a morning trading plan of what I expect, of what you'll see on here with the yellow arrows. Oh, it just kicked off there. So we've got exactly that kickoff on Hang Seng. The Hang Seng is hard because it doesn't open at 11:15. You got the CFD will move around, but it's a wide spread. So once the spread comes in at 11:15, that's where the action kicks off. So I bet your Dow's up. There you go. So what we're looking for at the Dows, you had this big sell-off, and that was on the open of the US session. Big sell-off on the major indices across the board. We had numbers come out in the US. The employment data was not as good, and they always talk about the slowing rate of decline. But the fact is, more and more people are taking unemployment benefits. Maybe not as many as they were at the start, but when it's still they're still taking unemployment benefits. All right, so their unemployment's not quite getting under wraps, and I wouldn't expect that's going to increase with the way this lockdown's going. So there's going to be more people that potentially have gone back to work that will be back in lockdown or are going back to work and we're going to go back to work. So I think in the US, same as what's happening in Melbourne, in Australia, maybe not potentially Australia, but that second wave, even there's risk of a third wave if we can't get it under control. So the market will be weighing this up, especially where we are at the moment. We're up at the highs in the US market. This Nasdaq's still going strong, which is just a bubble waiting to be pricked. Um, and just I would expect everyone's starting to weigh up. If you're holding some longer term positions and you've been doing quite well, and you start to see these cracks appearing, would you be wanting to hold it? I mean, it doesn't matter what the fundamentals are saying. It's your psychology of your trade. Are you willing to give up those gains if you're looking back in time to what happened with the major correction? So there's a lot to be said about the psychology of trading. Not everything's system based. When fear grips, it's got nothing to do with system based or fundamentals. It's just people want out, and the same on the upside. People want in at the moment, and that's you would expect there's going to be a massive unwind sooner or later. So we've got just going back to the Dow after I got sidetracked a little bit. I've got the Dow expecting this flush, which we've got there. It's whether it can kick on a bit and then start holding a lower high. We want to see a key lower high come off this level. You can see how yesterday was kind of bullish. It kept trading up in that zone, but it was finding weakness. And we've got a long on somewhere. I think it was in this little spike. No, actually, it wasn't in the spike. It was earlier here, somewhere in here. Um, didn't go too far. I wasn't expecting a major. I was expecting at least to test up to 150, so quick to get out once it fell over. And when we got this market starting to look bullish coming to the US Open, but then the numbers come out and got smacked down. News is also saying that Trump was a talk of a high court ruling. He's going to give up his tax documents, which weighed on the market. I don't know if it was that. I'm leaning towards the employment figures weighing on the market. So that's what we're looking at, a bit of a flush high and then looking for that lower high. Now, if it just comes back down here and we retest from underneath and fail, we sort of had that pull back into the zone, retest and then fail, you'd be looking for that lower high to sell into. I'm not really bullish on the markets coming to the weekend anyway. I mean, it could change during the session. Of course, your plans are going to change, but these are the starting plans, I guess. So we'll see if we hold. Asian market's been quite bullish. Okay, it's been very bullish. There's a lot of heat still to come out. You can see that rally up. We're starting to fade now. Now, if we fade off a lower high here, there's still quite a few longs that can be unwind. I'm saying we're going to trade through at 25,890. I reckon we'll blast straight through it, especially being a weekend and what's been happening with the increasing cases. And even Trump is touting we haven't had any more deaths. Now they're increasing as well. The death toll is actually increasing. So if that's the case, there should be some pressure coming to this market. I wouldn't expect this to be too bullish, the Hang Seng, trading right back up to 26,275. All right, so we'll just see how that plays out at 11:15. And now the SPY, we're going to see open in 5 minutes or so. I expect that to flush. The market has to flush levels. We've got this level up at probably 59.05 could get flushed out and then look for weakness. Otherwise, we come straight off the bat, we come straight down, or we're looking for that bounce off the zone potentially to get some then further weakness at a lower height. It might play out later on. I mean, it tends to be when it looks like it's weak, it's still squeezing higher. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. All right, so let's get over to, here we go. What do we got here? The dollar index. Now, the dollar index bounced. We were talking about this zone for quite a few times, flushed it out and bounced quite strong. And that was on the back of that number, 1030. You can see the market just basically started to rally. Now, that trend is still down. We could be in a zone where it could be just dragging in some buyers to squeeze it back out of the action because that trend is still holding lower highs. Now, if we start to, I'm looking at this inside level, we might flush it out and then bounce from here, or we might start to chop around here and hold this level. It should be open in about 15 minutes on the dollar index. I don't know if that's open now. I think it opens at 10. Looks like it's open now at 9:30. But if we start chopping around here and start to hold a higher level, or at least above this zone at 96.67, then that could trigger a bit of some further buying. And if we do trade up and we break out of this convincingly, this downtrend, then I'd suggest that a rally's on the cards, a bigger rally, which would play into weakness into the equity market. Just going over to the Aussie, that potentially you can see that weakness is coming into the market prior to the US, the 1030 mark. So the US was about here, say, when we started to get the US dollar fall apart and equity markets fall apart on the open at 11:30. So the Aussie dollar was just hanging around until we saw the equity market, even though the US dollar was rallying to put pressure. It was definitely capped on the upside, but it was just waiting to see the equity market open, which sold off. Okay, you can see the 11:30 candle there, and 12 o'clock candle there. Bang, started to get hit hard as it just took a while, but the long term, these buyers have been building up, get squeezed out of the action. Now there's pressure coming in well before that, up at these highs. We can see that around 5:30 our time, Sydney time. It was just struggling. It couldn't get above and hold above that 69.94 zone, which would suggest there could be a selling opportunity through here. Right, so that's what it'll probably look at long term. The problem is it's coming into the European session. You want to be careful. It could flush either way. It could flush down, bounce back up. It could flush up, and it looks like a buyer, then straight back down again. But I think that's the level. If that triggers on the downside, I think that could take us down to at least this zone here. We might find a reaction, or it could drive straight through. The fact that it consolidates, the longer it consolidates just above level, it's probably going to be a stronger move down. All right, so we'll keep an eye on that one. Euro's starting to fall apart. You can see that resistance zone we spoke about a few times here. It did flush up and through, which the market has to do, has to drive up. Well, it doesn't always have to drive, but you definitely think when it starts to push up and through and then start to fail, that's a sign of a bigger move down to me anyway. That's why I'm viewing this Euro's more weakness. I think it's showing a bit more than the US dollar. The US dollar sort of up at that resistance zone. It could roll over just as easy and continue the trend down. But the euro is not showing those signs. It's showing like it's potentially ready to fall apart a bit. So if we do get a pop up and hold a lower high in that, say 130, 113.20 thereabouts, then I think it's going to head straight down to 11.80, this support zone through here. I'll quickly look at the pound. Pound's actually holding up okay. I mean, it's still holding higher levels, coming to that resistance zone. Whether that's the key that you're going to work some shorts off, I don't know. But if it starts to break through 125.90, say, it doesn't mean the trend's over. It could be a flush and run back up again, or it could just completely fall apart. But that's still holding some higher lows. Over to gold, good old favorite gold. As we're saying, if you get out of being a safe haven at the moment, it's US dollar based. US dollar finds strength, gold should find some weakness, and it's enough to flush out a few of these longs. Longs have built up here. The bulls are starting to rally up. The gold bugs, they got squeezed out with that US dollar rally. And you can see the reactions at exactly the same time once the US market opened. So if that's the case and we get a US dollar rally, expect gold to go down. And if everything's falling apart, there will be buyers into gold as a safe haven. Now, I don't think it's going to react that way. I mean, it could. I just don't think it hasn't been at the moment. Even though, people are saying that the US dollar is buying as a safe haven. Why is a safe haven when the US markets are going up? And everything else is pointing to risk on, except for gold. So it's US dollar based at this stage. Over to Crude fell apart, which is not a good sign. You can see that big sell-off that we're talking just hovering around the 40 buck mark, and it did pop up to the highs, retested these highs. So in essence, that's a longer term lower high through here. Okay, if we just take this out. Um, that action, or it didn't play out straight away, but that action's starting to play out now. Now, if we get a push through this low at say 39.20 thereabouts, without really bouncing much from here, and it's contained within the lower 40 bucks, say, which if you can see is a lower high just in here. If it gets contained, it might chop around, and then bang, we might get a second leg down, which I reckon could drive us right down to 37 quite easily, because there's quite a few longs built up here that have been squeezed out, but you get stubborn longs that won't come out yet because they might be holding for a longer position from down here. They're still in profit. Those stubborn longs will be the next leg that will get squeezed out and push lower. Okay, and then copper. Now look at copper. That reacted off that zone we've been speaking about for a while. It was well and truly jammed up there. Even though it finished up for the session, the fact that it got rammed up to that resistance zone and then fell apart with everything else, equity market opened. You can see that falling apart there. Now, if that can't do anything and the US dollar continues to rally, there's going to be a big unwind. I would expect a big unwind on the copper because they're starting to look at demand. Now, I don't think demand at the moment has lifted too much to warrant these higher prices, especially when it, off these key lows from a big sell-off. So that's copper. Just watch out for an unwind. If that starts to show some cracks, everything's going to be lining up for a bit of a sell-off. And hopefully we can make some money on the downside. Now, Bitcoin, it's choppy. We're talking about this, I think, rallying yesterday. Was it about that stage? Let's go back to where we were talking about it. Yeah. So somewhere about here. So it's already rallied. Hopefully we were looking at pushing up, but it's linked to the equity market fortunes at the moment. Selling into the equity market, we're getting selling into Bitcoin and your cryptos, your major cryptos anyway. So if it can't hold up here, if this is not just a flush and we can't hold up this zone and start to rally again, then that's going to head straight back down to 89.50. It needs to do some work. And by work, I don't mean just a pop from here. I mean it start to hold this as a base and then bring in some buyers for a pushback up to this zone, up to these highs. If not, it's all over red rover. Look at Ethereum, much of the same. There's still some choppy price action. It got through these resistance zones, but it's struggling. You can see up through this zone. Okay, struggling up there. It's still holding a higher level, which is good. Better than what Bitcoin's showing. Bitcoin's just hovering around the higher low, potentially the anchor to the uptrend. But Ethereum is actually holding slightly higher. So if this can do the same as Bitcoin, start to bring in some buyers and hold some inside higher levels, then expect that to push back up again. And the same token goes, if it starts to grind back up and we start to fail at a lower level, I'm expecting that to push straight through 234 and we might be heading to 215 in the longer term. Well, that's all I really wanted to cover today. Hope it helps. Now, if you've got any questions, feel free to give us send us an email to support@tradesetup.com.au. If you like what you hear, great if you leave us a like, and we will speak to you next week. So Monday will be at 12:30. The stream goes for an hour. There's no morning playbook at 9:40. So we're just doing that 1 hour stream. So that's something to look forward to. Hopefully we get a bit of action tonight to talk about. Have a great weekend, guys, and we'll speak to you again soon.